Folks, I'm going to go on and call us to order. We've got a full house and even fuller agenda tonight, so I'm going to go on and call us to order here. First thing up for business, we're going to have our opening prayer, and I'm going to call on Commissioner Altizer to lead us with prayer.
Please bow. Dear Lord, thank you so very much for this day. Bless us and watch over us, and Lord, help us to listen to the constituency tonight, make good decisions, and do everything we can to make Hendersonville a better place. Lord, protect Israel in this time. Watch over them, Lord. Bless them and take care of them. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Move to the calling of the roll. Caitlin, will you call the roll, please?
I think we're going to try to do that.
We're going to try to do this electronically, so this is going to be... All right. Okay.
Yeah, tonight we're going to do electronic.
Okay. This ought to be fun. Y'all are in for an experience on this one. So, all right. Okay, so everybody just push your button if you're here. If you're not here, push your button too. So I guess I don't know, how's that work? So.
Yeah, but it won't. Oh, good.
So I guess Commissioner Altizer and Commissioner Evans, y'all are going to abstain from being here, but
No.
Oh, was that an option?
Which one's
Was that an option?
Yeah.
I pushed the center.
I think it recorded y'all is here.
Hit the green button. Oh, yours is not coming up.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, see.
No, he pushes the green button, but green button.
There you go.
There it goes.
No.
I don't think that they're labeled on everybody's. In case they're not,
They're
I think.
not.
Commissioner Evans, this may be the same way for yours. Do you have labels on yours down there? Okay.
I have no labels.
Okay, if you don't, it looks like the plus button would be
The left.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. With that, so yeah, like I said, y'all are in it for an experience on that one, so appreciate you bearing with us. Next up, we have on our agendas, is an acceptance of the agenda. This one I think we can do without the roll call on this one. We can do this one just voice vote on that. And so I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Slattery, and I think I heard, can I get a second on that, please? Second, I have a second from Commissioner Martin. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. We have the agenda accepted. Next up is we have two public hearings tonight. We'll do these separately. The first one, we have a public hearing on Grace Place. I'll read the exact description of this. We have a public hearing to hear comments on a request to amend Grace Place Ministry Comprehensive Development Plan with a parking waiver and perimeter landscape buffer, as well as a new site layout. The property is located on the northeast side of Industrial Park Road and New Shackle Island Road intersection at 126 Shackle Island Road. And it looks like we have 7 speakers signed up for this, and so we'll just call in order. It looks like Jonathan Hayes, you are up first. If you would just come up to the podium, and even though you've listed here, if you would introduce yourself and state your address as well, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate it. My name's Jonathan Hayes. I live in Governor's Point here in Hendersonville. I appreciate this commission very, very much. There's an old saying in the planning commission business that you cannot legislate good taste. But the truth is, it is put upon the responsibility of this commission to do everything they can to build things in good taste in this city. And you all have done a great job. I was not born here, but I got here as quickly as I could. And it's been almost a little over 40 years since we moved here. And I love Hendersonville, Tennessee. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best place in the world. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. My children are moving back, and they're bringing my grandchildren with them. So I'm so grateful. I've got an attitude of gratitude. I want to thank y'all tonight for what y'all did last year when you approved Grace Place Ministries building request. And I want to encourage you to support Grace Place Ministries again tonight, to me, what they are asking you to approve is truly a win-win. It's a win for the city. I believe it's a win for this board. I know it's a win for the ministry and for those people that are going to be living in those homes. And so I just want to encourage you to work through the details. There are probably some details. You're going to have some questions, but I'm confident with your track record, what y'all did last time, that you're going to work with this ministry. In a lot of ways, I like this comment. The heart of this ministry is so good for Hendersonville. When I think of Hendersonville, I think of all the churches that are here and all the godly people, and it makes me love my city that much more. And this is a ministry that, without question, will help the city move forward. There's a lot of people, as you all know, with inflation and everything that's going on out there, the list of people that are wanting to who are needing to be served by Grace Place Ministries, it just continues to go up. So I appreciate all that y'all can do to support this plan. Before I sit down, I want to ask if it's all right, Mr. Chairman, could I have those stand that are here on behalf of the Grace Place Ministries tonight?
I think we can allow that.
If that's okay, because I know they don't all want to speak, but if you are with the group, would you please stand? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you. Thank you, commissioners. Good evening.
Thank you. Next up, we have to speak on this particular public hearing. We have Ray Moore. Mr. Moore, if you would come up to the podium. Again, same thing, even though I've mentioned your name, if you'd state your name and your address as well, please.
Thank you. My name is Ray Moore. I live at 2101 Center Point Road. I am a member of and a trustee with the Lakeview Church of Christ next door to the Grace Place. First of all, let me make you clear, I am not opposed to Grace Place. I think it's a great idea. I have a couple of questions. I can't find, or could not find, the information that really told me what this was about, the waivers and so forth. I had not really seen details on the plan, so it kind of got me in the dark. But just a couple of little things that I want to point out. One being, we have to wonder, curious, I guess, or maybe concerned, security, a little bit. And all the women that they're wanting to service of this is with Grace Places, they need the help, and I'm all for it. But most of them, or a lot of them, there's some not so great men that put them in that position. I just wonder if there's sufficient security, if there is a problem, if any of those guys going to show up and cause a problem. That's just nothing to do with this variance. And the second, being the parking variance, I can see that 1.4 cars per residence or for whatever the cottage is sufficient for what you have. But if something changes in the future, and this is more just a residential situation, there's going to be need for more parking. That concerns us being next door. Where are these people going to park? If this place is full, they may be blocking our parking lots, filling up to that type of thing. I think we need to look further down the road. Nothing lasts forever. If it were to be the Grace Place outgrows it and wants to build somewhere else and sell this to somebody to use as an apartment complex, then there'd be a real problem. So I just want to point out that we need to think about what might be future issues and so, just try to avoid any problems like that down the road. Other than that, I can't remember anything else I was going to say. So, but again, I'm not opposed to it, just concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next up, we have John Moore.
I'm, excuse me, John Moore. I live at 1069 Morning View Drive in Gallatin, but I also, for over 45 years, have been a member of the church next door there. And like Ray, I would support this outfit. If they asked me for help, I'd help them in any way I can. I have no problem with them being there. I think it's a great thing. I do have the same reservations about the parking. You know, they could go broke, they could go so well that they move, and then once you approve this, somebody does come in to just buy it up to rent for apartments. We all know that it'll be grandfathered. And that's our reservation, because we do have parking right there next to it, and our congregation, I'm probably in the younger half of that congregation. I'll be 71 next month, so. We have a lot of older folks, and our flat parking with a flat sidewalk is right there against this property, so that's our concern. And like I say, if they do, we all know that you never always have enough parking. You can go anywhere in town, apartments, restaurants, businesses. There's going to be times when you have to have more parking. And that's our concern, because you're bringing that situation much more quickly if you drop the parking requirement by 30%, which is what we're looking at. And we have nothing against Grace Place. I think it's a wonderful thing from what little I know about it, and would support it. But I do have a problem with the parking waiver. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next up, we have Keith Hopper.
Thank you, sir. My name is Keith Hopper. I live in Gallatin, but I am a owner of Century Steel on Center Point Road, 25-year business owner here in Hendersonville. I just want to show my support for Grace Place. I appreciate your time. I hope you will approve this and give it due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brenda Payne.
Good evening, and thank you so much for letting me come and speak tonight. My name is Brenda Payne, and I live in the Hunt Club. And even though it's a Gallatin address, I do live in Hendersonville, so I'm glad.
And I'll vouch for that.
I'm glad. I know you do too. As a matter of fact, I started to say, Jeff, you're my neighbor, so I know that you know that we are both in Hendersonville. I really appreciate the work that you all do, and I don't think that I could improve on anything that Jonathan has already talked about in terms of what our plans are and those kinds of things. But I do want to tell you that my engagement with Grace Place has gone back from the very first luncheon that we had, and I think there were probably 25 people in the room that day as it was introduced to the community. This past year, we had our luncheon in April, and second year in a row, we had 1,000 people at that luncheon. There is a great deal of support for this organization and what it does, and I think each and every one of you already is aware of that. But I did want to tell you that my support of this goes back because I've had some personal connection with this. And I'm not going to go into that, but I do recognize that there are so many young women who just need an opportunity to have a place for them to go, to learn, to understand what it is to get into life's business and to get that opportunity for education and a job and to get on their feet. And that's what Grace Place does for these women. So this is going to provide an opportunity for many, many, many more families. I don't think that I have to tell you what a valuable service it is. And I do recognize the concerns that folks who are neighbors of the location might have. But I also want to tell you, I sit on the board of Grace Place. I am confident that as a board member and as a board as we move forward, because I'm older than the gentleman who just talked to up here a minute ago, so I'm not going to be around forever. I have been in this community for 47 years. But I am confident that Grace Place intends to be a good neighbor, that we will partner in a way that will make sure that everybody is served in the best way possible. So I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I would ask and encourage you to support this request tonight. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Kelly Green, it looks like.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Green. I'm the Vice President of Quality and Risk Management at TriStar Hendersonville, and I live at 104 Oak Ridge Court, which is not in this community, but however, I have been a part of this community for a very long time as co-PTO presidents of the Jack Anderson Elementary School and lived off Saundersville Road prior to this. And what I can say about this community, as a pastor's wife in this community, that it is mission-minded, and I can only support what Jonathan and Brenda said when it comes to the mission and the heart of this ministry to help young women. And as a healthcare provider, I see that need not just in young women, but in so many people these days when it comes to just finances. And then add to that that you are out on your own and trying to make your way and trying to provide for your family and trying to make ends meet. So I would ask that you would consider this request and that you would approve it with the variances that we have requested. And as a board member, I also promise that we will be good neighbors to the community and work as partners to make sure that needs are met.
Thank you. And lastly, it looks like Keith Head.
Good evening. My name is Keith Head. I live off of Chute Lane here in Hendersonville. Me and my wife have been here since 2016, but grown up in Middle Tennessee my entire life. I went to Grace Place in 2017 to the first luncheon and have been a part of it ever since. Recently on the board and on the building committee for what you see over there on the screen. For those that are concerned, I will say that every thought, consideration has been put in this, and hard work has been put in this as well. Grace Place, I also am a local banker here at First National Bank, so I see every day people that struggle, that need help with affordable housing, and this is a much needed project. I'm here to show that support for this, and I ask you tonight to approve this. So thank you.
Thank you. That was the last speaker who signed up for this particular public hearing. Is there anybody that intended to speak on this public hearing who did not? Okay, we've got a couple of hands on that. Okay, thank you. I saw yours first, so if you can say, and you're also closest to the podium, so we'll let you go first. So,
yeah.
If you would give us your name and address.
Oh, yeah, my name's Lauren Willoughby. I live at 104 Braxton Lane West by the Target.
Okay, did you catch all that?
Yeah. I'm here from the Memorial Foundation. We're a
Can you
philanthropic.
state your name one more time? He's got to write this
Oh,
down.
I apologize. It's Lauren Willoughby, and my address is 104 Braxton Lane West. Awesome, thanks. I work at the Memorial Foundation, so we're a philanthropic partner of Grace Place. We have been since their inception, and I'm here on behalf of our staff and board just to say how excited we are about this project. This is something that we talk about with our other funding partners in Middle Tennessee. So when it's happening, we've got other people in Middle Tennessee in the philanthropic community that are really excited about this. And Grace Place has just been a phenomenal partner for us, and we're so excited about getting to partner with them on this. And then I also wanted to say, just because I am a Sumner County resident, my family's here, I'm from here, and I hope that I'll be here until I'm old. I love, yeah, I love this town, and it makes me so excited that we would have an opportunity like this, an opportunity to invest in something like this. And I don't know if you're not familiar with nonprofits, you may not know just how scrappy nonprofits are, how much they do with how little they have. It's amazing. So I think if we're going to bet on anyone, this would be a phenomenal opportunity to do that. So I share your optimism that I'm excited to see how this goes. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. And I believe there's one more. Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Erin Birch, B-I-R-C-H. I live at 1017 Five Coves Trace in Gallatin. I have been a Sumner County resident for 24 years, and I am the CEO of our local United Way of Sumner County. Grace Place is one of our partner agencies, and I can tell you that when United Way says that they are fully vetted, they are. Grace Place has been a partner since their inception, and we are very proud that they are one of our partner agencies that collaborate with many, many other agencies within the community. I also want to make sure that we recognize the pressing issue that our community faces. There's lots of challenges that when it comes to housing and shelter. Our recent data from 211 calls in the last year clearly demonstrate that nearly half of the calls, over 42%, were directly related to housing and shelter needs. Within this category, there were specific, urgent requests for shelter, for low-cost housing, rent assistance, and mortgage assistance. These figures underline the stark reality that we face with our neighbors who are grappling homelessness or housing instability. Making accessible housing is vital. A safe housing is a vital, paramount concern that we all, as Sumner Countyans who love this place, should be looking at. I would just go ahead and just say that we are very committed to supporting this initiative. And I know that Grace Place is also committed to working closely with all the community, both nonprofits and government alike, to make sure that this investment supports us all and that it can be looked at in the future as something that we are all still very, very proud of years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that intended to speak at this public hearing that did not recognize or did not get the opportunity to sign up? Not seeing anyone, I am going to declare this public hearing closed. We'll deal with this item in a little while when we get to it on our agenda. We have another public hearing to get to first on that. Next up on the agenda is the public hearing for Westlake rezoning. It's a public hearing to hear comments on the proposed rezoning of properties and zoning ordinance text amendments that implements the amended zoning requirements to reflect land use standards adopted with the passage of the Westlake at Hendersonville land use plan and other zoning text amendments. Public hearing to hear comments on proposed rezoning of properties and zoning ordinance text amendments that implements amended zoning requirements to reflect land use standards adopted with the passage of the Westlake at Hendersonville land use plan and other zoning text amendments. Well, it looks like we have 4 speakers signed up to speak on this, and the first is Daniel Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt, will you step up to the podium, please, introduce yourself and give your name and address as well. Same format as on the other one.
Good evening. I am a property owner at 179 West Main Street in the Westlake rezoning area. My concerns and questions are about the notes. So the area, my understanding, is going from Old Town Commercial to General Commercial, which, for the most part, seems to be a pretty like-for-like swap. With the exception of my little corner of Hendersonville, there were some notes called out, specifically preventing the construction of new hotels and motels. I own the Relax Inn. That's right there on that little corner. And while I understand that the zone that would be grandfathered in, anything that happened to the building or future changes to the building, I'm curious as to why that limitation was put in for just our little corner of general commercial and the new zoning plan. I don't have any intention of buying any more property or doing anything more like that, but it is the business that I am engaged in, and that type of a limitation concerns me. The other one of the other points on it was that buildings in this particular area, again, I'm very curious about why just this one little piece of Hendersonville has all these notes added to the zoning changes. But the restriction of building height here, unlike other general commercial areas, is going to be limited to 2 stories on, away from the lake, 1 story on the lake. I'm the 2-story variety. Again, I don't understand why we're being limited to 2 stories. That affects the commercial value of the property. Again, no plans of doing anything. We bought the hotel 4 years ago and are quite content running a small family hotel. But trying to protect our interest down the road as Hendersonville changes and land values change and things like that, having a restriction that really only is applicable to this little corner is confusing. And I'm requesting either to have that limited to 3 stories at a minimum, or further conversation about the issue. I think that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Woods Drinkwater.
Good evening. My name is Woods Drinkwater. I'm an attorney, and I represent the owners of The Grove at Waterford Crossing Apartments that's located at 101 Spade Leaf Boulevard. That apartment complex would like to note their objection to rezoning that property and this property surrounding that area from Old Town Residential to Suburban Residential 3, with Old Town Residential accommodating a mixture of residential dwelling types and Suburban Residential 3 encouraging single-family detached dwellings and encouraging new construction of limited density. We believe that it would perhaps make more sense to designate that area to be rezoned as multifamily residential, which would be in keeping with the district's current makeup. And I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marty Cook.
Good evening, folks. Marty Cook, 103 Citation Circle in Hendersonville. Over the past 10 years or so, I've worked on several of the developments within the overall Waterford area that is impacted by this proposal. And I've talked to the city attorney about this. All that I would ask for on behalf of the property owners and the developers that I have worked with in the past is that as these discussions go forward, there be some consideration given to those who already have development plans that are in place that could be impacted by this, that could negatively impact their property. I know that throughout several of the approval processes for these various developments, there were significant contributions made to the city by some of these developers in the form of payments in lieu of traffic improvements, parks, some of which have been implemented, some of which have not been implemented. But I say all that to say that I just hope that as these discussions go forward, that there'll be some consideration for that so that these folks' property values will not be negatively impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, it looks like we have Patrick Parker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I too, Patrick Parker, 108 Meadow Lake Court here in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm also an attorney, and I guess the third attorney I humbly hope to be as eloquently spoken as the two before me here. But I rise as well on behalf of my client, specifically Delta Investment Partnership, who was involved in the Waterford Crossing development and paid those concessions that Mr. Cook has spoken about, significant concessions for not only traffic and improvements in the area, but also donating land that ultimately was used for the widening of Walton Ferry as well. And I agree with totally with Mr. Cook's comments in terms of wanting the city to be open for those that have existing property that have been purchased and developed with the Waterford Crossing development in mind, and that would be potentially severely impacted by going from OTC, OTR to SR3. So appreciate those considerations.
Thank you. That concludes. Did you intend to speak on this one? Yes, sir. Okay. Same format, sir, if you would give us your name and address so we can
Sure.
make note of it.
My name is David Butler. I live at 145 Cages Road. That's the poor section of Hendersonville. That's supposed, y'all supposed to laugh when I say that. There's not poor. Anyway, I also own 147 Cages Road. So, I'm confused. I have two letters here mailed on the same day that basically say two different things. And I'm not really sure what is right. I mean, not trying to embarrass anybody or anything, but I have two letters mailed on the 13th. And they basically, one of them talks about Old Town Commercial to Dockside Neighborhood. And I'm sure y'all are familiar with the other letter that calls it Old Town Commercial going to and Old Time Residential OTR. So I'm trying to figure out, and someone can explain to me later. I know I'm not that sharp. What's going on? They are different maps. I have and I'm asking for anybody to comment. Anybody.
Sir, Director asked me to get your name and number so he can follow up with you afterwards
Sure.
on that. So
Sure.
get that because
David Butler.
you can give it to him privately. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you want it out there on YouTube. I mean, that's your choice.
I'm easy to find, okay? Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I did not sign up. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else that intended to sign up for the Westlake public hearing that would like to speak that hadn't gotten the opportunity to? Seeing none, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed as well. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is this general public comment time that's limited to agenda items only. Nobody has signed up for that, so I'm going to declare that closed. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes from our previous meeting. I'm going to assume that everybody on the commission here has gotten the opportunity to review those. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Silkwood and a second from Commissioner Altizer. I believe we can still do a voice vote on this one. Is that correct, or does this need to be a roll call?
Yeah, voice is okay.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify approval of the minutes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Commissioner Hardwick was not here, so please, we'll note his abstention from that since he was not here at our prior meeting on that. But motion carries. Next item up is our consent agenda, and we have 3 items on that. I'll let Director Free very quickly just run through the 3 items on our consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 3 items, I'll go over those fairly quickly. The first one is Campbell Crossing. This is a preliminary plat for a 12-lot subdivision located at 1468/1490 Saundersville Road, and that's approval of a preliminary plat. The next item is Music City Studios. This is a project that was approved about 2.5 years ago for Music City Studios. That project is still a viable project, and it's running out of its 2-year time frame for the approval in January, and they're requesting to extend that for 1 more year. So it would be until January 2025 for the extension of that. I may just note that the state law has a vesting of 3 years, and then we have currently we're proposing a change later with some text amendments, but currently we have that it's approved for 2 years, and then you can get a 1-year extension. But actually, they're already vested for a year, so we're going to be correcting that. But we'll just process that. The Stables at Hunt Club site plan. This is a development as you come into the Hunt Club, right there on the right. The City of Gallatin property line is right there, and then to the right there's a vacant lot right before you get to the Hunt Club swimming pool. This is a commercial development that's proposing to locate there, and it's a site plan for that. All of that's in order. They've agreed with all staff comments, and all of those items are on the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Director Free. Give this opportunity, as we always do, for any commissioners, if there's anybody that wants to pull anything off the consent agenda. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, with all staff comments, of course.
Oh, yeah. I got a couple of questions.
Oh.
Not
Commissioner Hasty?
necessarily pull from the
Yes, sir.
agenda, but just a couple of questions.
Commissioner Hasty?
I noticed on Campbell Crossing, it says that all utilities are to be underground.
That's correct.
But it also says that the Cumberland electric plan will be submitted with construction plans.
That's correct.
Now, we recently had a project here in town where everybody assumed everything was going to be underground, but they had a stream crossing. They got stream crossings. Is Cumberland Electric going to come back and say, nope, we're going to stick them overhead? How are we going to respond and react when we say they're required?
Right. I'll let Mr. Green address that. He reviewed that particular project.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a very good question. And one of the things that with the other project, with it being a site plan, we didn't have the benefit of having construction plans as we would with this. So we have an extra layer of review on that. And then with the construction plans, what we'll do is we won't approve the construction plans until they either have underground electric along the roadway, which in looking at that, I did not see overhead electric on that side of the road, which is good. So they would have to go underground and keep it underground on that side of the road completely, as well as with that construction plan review. Basically, if Cumberland Electric balks and says that they can't do the underground electric, we would bring it back to the Planning Commission and have you guys look at that.
That answered my question as far as that project is concerned. The Stables at Hunt Club. I know on all those buildings, we're winding up with a minimum average of 25% architectural metal panels. And then a lot of wood panels. Does those percentages meet our design criteria without having to have a variance request from our current standards?
I will let Mr. Witten answer that question.
Yes, sir. So our zoning ordinance, it does prohibit some types of metal. There are other types, though, specifically high-grade aluminum and architectural metal panels that it permits on a case-by-case basis, based on the context that it's in. So that's what this project is proposing. Are some I brought the samples here in case y'all want to look at them. Pass those down. These are high-grade architectural panels, not the typical cheap, flimsy metal that the ordinance has in mind through its prohibition.
And this is, we have approved this particular product in other areas on Indian Lake Boulevard. I think the service station there at Saundersville Road and Indian Lake has some of this. We do try to limit the amount of metal. Even this type of metal, we try to keep a limit on the amount of that that's proposed, which they've done here. But that's kind of the explanation behind that.
I think it's a product that can be used. I think it's being used a little excessively on this particular project, particularly in light of the Hunt Club office complex across the street from Hunt Club Boulevard. There's no consistency whatsoever between the developments across the street. Don't know that there has to be, but if the staff thinks it's acceptable and meets our requirements, I'll support you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hasty. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. We have a motion from Commissioner
Second.
Silkwood and a second from Commissioner Slattery. This one we will do a roll call vote again. So bear with us as we fumble through this, folks. Okay.
Make sure yours is right, Tim.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Looks like we have everybody voted. We have 9 yes and 0 abstentions and 0 no's. Caitlin, do you have that recorded? Okay, all right, we're good. So motion carries to approve the consent agenda as presented. Next up on our agenda is development plans. First up is Grace Place. Of course, we've had public hearing on that. So first what I'll do is I'll ask for representative from the developer to step up, and then I'll ask Timothy, who's lead from planning staff on this, to give us an introduction, and then have representative from the developer available to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a comprehensive development plan for Grace Place was approved back in the summer of 2022. That plan was for 4 3-story apartment-type buildings with 12 units in each building, plus a 3-story office/daycare facility. They are now proposing an amendment to the plan that kind of throws out the big apartment-style buildings in favor of a single-family and villa or duplex units that are clustered around some common open spaces. So it's a big design difference that just provides them kind of a better, certainly a better design in terms of livability and community. They're proposing a total of 43 units. That they're keeping the 48 allowed units that they were entitled to via the currently approved plan. So 48 units still allowed, but they're only proposing to build 43 at this time. And then of course they'll still have a 2-story office office facility. So as part of that, they're requesting 2 waivers. The first waiver is a parking waiver. They're required to provide 2 parking spaces for each of the 43 residential units, plus 14 for the offices, for a total of 100 spaces. They're requesting to provide 1.4 spaces for each residential unit, plus 14 for the office, for a total of 74 spaces required. You may notice they have more than 74 proposed. I think it was 82 spaces. But they may, as they go through the site plan stage, they may have cause to delete some of the spaces to provide for fire access or things like that. So 74 is the total they're requiring, is the total they're requesting. The second waiver they're requesting is for landscape buffers. So on page 5 of the staff report, which is up on your screen, that report, the staff report shows the landscape buffers that are required in red. So 30-foot buffer for adjacent to industrial and 20 feet adjacent to general commercial. They're requesting a reduction down to 8.5 feet adjacent to the commercial and 15.5 feet adjacent to the industrial areas. So on that graphic, the green line represents the reduction that they're requesting. And within that buffer, they will be providing a fence, an aluminum railing type fence within that buffer. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Timothy. Dee, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or did you have a representative here that you wanted to speak on behalf of the project?
Thank you, Caitlin. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Cal Gentry. I'm here tonight representing Grace Place. Before I get started with Grace Place's presentation, if I could, I'd like to have Neige Van Cleve speak. She's the Executive Director, and just to give you a little bit of background on the organization itself.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Okay. I just want to note before you get started, this PowerPoint's from y'all. It's not something produced by staff on that. I want to note that for the recording on that too. So, Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
So Grace Place has been here since 2015. We're in our 8th operating year, and we serve women and children throughout Sumner County who are experiencing homelessness. I do want to emphasize homelessness. We are not a domestic violence shelter. So we do not have a lot of the security concerns that a domestic violence shelter would have. A family cannot come to us if they're in imminent danger. That's why we work with Home Safe here in Sumner County, because they do domestic violence. So I wanted to make that clear because that was a concern that I'm very sensitive about, and as an organization, we are super sensitive about that. We have served hundreds of women and children in the community and helped them restore their lives through our program. 87% of our program graduates are independent in Sumner County still over that 8 years. So the program has been highly successful because these mothers are incredible, and when they have this opportunity, they use it to their full advantage to restore their lives and end up in a much better place as a result of working the program. We have homeowners out in the community, college graduates. I couldn't be more proud of what the women and children have been able to do with the opportunity. I do want to speak to some of the concerns that have been brought up. We have, for 8 years, been neighbors of a church right next door to us, Fireplace Fellowship. We've always had a beautiful working relationship with them. We would have no intention of working any other way with any of our neighbors at this new site, and look forward to doing so. And I also just want to highlight the fact that Grace Place has been on Walton Ferry Road for 8 years. Most people think that we are a child care facility because it's very well managed, it's very well upkept, but we have absolutely no suspicious incidences at all on our record with the police department. There have not been, there's just the security and safety and the things that have been brought up. Our track record shows that we don't have to be that concerned, but we do plan on having this be a gated community and taking proper security measures for our population to keep them safe, because we know women and children are vulnerable. So, are there any questions?
And now you get the boring part from me. As I said, my name is Cal Gentry, and I'm here I'm representing Grace Place from kind of the development plan standpoint. I'm honored to be up here. Honestly, this is a great organization. I'm very happy to be here representing them. We're here, of course, requesting a change to their concept plan. I was not involved in the plan when it went through last year as an apartment-style buildings. Was brought in towards the end of last year to help get that project off the ground. Subsequently, we studied the cost of those types of buildings, the cost of the site work associated with the big footprints that required this giant rocky hill to be leveled 8 feet, and just the cost of that was enormous. From those two things, from the site standpoint, construction costs, we all know about interest rates, and just things have changed since this was approved. So when Dee brought me in, we sat down and looked at these numbers, and she actually brought up a piece of note paper and said, this was my original plan for this, but we're here. An original plan was a bunch of boxes, houses, around a green circle with a office building in the front with a fountain. There's always been a fountain. And we started talking about that, and there's a project concept called a pocket neighborhood, which I know Keith is very familiar with. We've had long conversations about this. And we started looking at Grace Place from a mission standpoint. What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to get these single moms and their kids off the street into permanent housing, ultimately owning their own house, having a degree, having cars, things like that. So this pocket neighborhood concept is more, let's see if I can do this. It's single family home based. There are some that are attached, and that's why there's a multifamily designation on the plan, but that's just for an efficiency standpoint. We had 48 apartments approved on the plan, and we have 43 really truly single family residents shown on this plan. And just to show you kind of the difference, you can see here houses centered around small green pocket parks. They all open onto the central green, kind of overlooked by the administrative building. But as a comparison, this was a good plan. This was going to do what we needed it to do. But in looking at costs and the mission and this new concept, we felt like this, although it was good and we were very appreciative of the plan that was approved, and the buildings would have looked very nice, we felt like this concept better fit with Hendersonville as a community. So that's why we're here tonight. It's economic reasons, it's mission reasons, it's just a better project we feel like that will serve these families much more effectively. Let's see here. Along with this plan that we've submitted, we have asked for 2 waivers. Mr. Witten covered those specifically. One being the landscape buffers. Landscape buffers, as we discussed, but Timothy and I discussed, they're to protect residential uses from industrial uses or residential from commercial, not necessarily them from us. ServPro there to the southeast of us, they have a buffer on their side of the line that buffers from our residential use. The lot there to the west that'll front New Shackle, if it's developed industrial, they'll have a buffer on their side. Similarly, there to the east where the Pella site was originally planned, they'll have a buffer on their side of the line. So what we're asking for, in an attempt to have more green space and serve as many families as we can, to reduce those buffers. Along the church side, Timothy, you may speak to that a little more effectively than I can. I don't think as large a buffer is required between these two types of uses. But we're saving as many perimeter trees as we can, and we're going to be replacing them with a fence, which allows for normal reductions in buffer widths, as well as additional landscaping. So that's what we're asking for on the landscape side. It is truly, we get to do more mission. We get to serve more families by being just a little bit bigger. The second issue, and I'm glad it was brought up in the public hearing, is the issue of parking. This is the one, I think this is probably the biggest change from the original plan to the current plan. We've requested 1.4 units or spaces per unit, plus standard parking for the administrative building. And I may have to bring Dee back up. I'm going to do as good as I can. You just tell me if I'm wrong. But essentially, 30 of the 43 units are families that are stabilizing in the program. They have a car. They're going to work. They're dropping the kids off school. They're going to the grocery store. 1 car, 1 parent. That's it. 1 car per unit. The other 13 or so units are crisis program. Those are people that have just come in. Some of them have a car. Some of them don't.
93% of them, based on our current data are not going to have a car.
So as those people come in, you're not even really going to see a car in a lot of those. But what we've looked at in our numbers, and from my civil engineer math brain, we've got essentially 43 units with no more ever than one car per unit usability. 14 spaces in the administrative building, that's a total of, do the math, 57 spaces. We have 82 shown on the site plan. But we didn't feel comfortable asking for a parking waiver all the way down to that, so we asked for 1.4. And essentially what that gives us is about 8 extra spaces overall when you look at 1.4 spaces per house, 14 spaces for the administrative building. A lot of that will be in a shared orientation where staff goes home at night, people come home from work at night. So there is going to be a little bit of overlap in usability. There's room for visitors. And then, so from a parking count standpoint, that's why we felt justified asking for the lower requirement. And I heard what the fellows from the church said, and we're hearing what others are saying. And what I'd like to ask is that this parking waiver be tied to the approval of this site plan for this use, not in perpetuity. We're asking for a waiver associated with this use. If the motion could be made with that added, that way if somebody comes in 50 years from now, this changes to something else, they would have to come back to the Planning Commission, to the city for approval to do anything with a lower parking yield. If this turned into regular single family, they would have to eliminate some units or add some land to it to be able to park it. So that would give you all control, I think, from a technical standpoint. Hopefully that'll work. And then speaking to, I think I got it.
Can I sit?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I didn't want you to get tired. It's a little hot in here. Those of us who wore jackets are rethinking our choices tonight. Speaking to the comments from the fellows from the church, those are very valid. I hope Dee's explanation helps with the safety concerns. But I also want to say we are looking at this site from a safety standpoint outside, our neighbors, as well as inside. It's gated and it's fully fenced. We don't anticipate people coming onto the property without coming through the gates, and we don't expect people to leave without going through the gates. So that was something we did both to protect our families and the kids that run around, because there's a lot of little kids, and then our neighbors as well. So the program is set up where we don't really have those issues, but we've also tried to get out ahead of them, just like Dee said. So from a parking and the public comment standpoint, that's kind of the response on that. Now, I want to get into kind of my, what I think is the coolest part of this, which is the pocket neighborhood concept. So we have different progressive levels of livability. You're coming off the street, you're probably not feeling too comfortable, confident being around people, being out, you just need a place to be a family alone. So to start with, these homes will all have a side patio. You have the inside of your house where it's yours, and you have a home and a roof and a bed and a kitchen and bathrooms. But outside, you have this porch, where this patio, where you can be a family by yourselves privately. On the front of the homes, they all have porches. That's the next step in the progression. That's where, when you're ready to interact with your neighbors, you sit on the porch and you say hello as they walk by. You eventually start having conversations. You meet people, or other people are in the program. Your kids interact. You're starting to build mentorships, program. These porches, all these porches open onto these small pocket parks. Some of them, the sidewalks around the perimeter, so you've got play areas. Some are in the center where it brings you together. These are areas for families to mix, for kids to play safely. All of this, and I'll get back to the overall layout, but all of this is geared inward. It's bringing the kids away from the parking. It's keeping them in the green areas. It's getting them center, so that it's safer. The further you go in, the more people you're around, the safer it should be. So as you go through these smaller pocket parks, you can see how they merge together, and you're moving towards the big central green. Some of them, like I said, will have these central walks. Some of them will have kind of perimeter walks where you can play football in the middle. As you get to the center, it's kind of overlooked by the administrative building from this standpoint. You have this large central green area where all of the families, all of the people can come together to be taught, educated, loved on, just be around each other. This is where Dee works her magic, is when she's in front of these people, mixing and mingling. So that's how this progression of moving out of homelessness, we're actually using the site plan to move them through this program, which I think is absolutely amazing. So back to kind of the overall, this is a really just, I thought this painted the picture really well from a three-dimensional standpoint. You get a sense of, you can start to see down through the parks. You can see how the houses are individual, but they're connected. You can go be by yourself. You can be with your neighbors. It's just, it's a safe, solid way for a variety of people to come out of this situation of homelessness. So with that, the reason we're here tonight bringing you this revised concept plan is not because what we asked for first was bad. It was good. It would have solved the problem. But with the costs and the changes we've had economically, and then just this concept falling into our laps, this is a better way to serve these families, these women, and these children. So that's why we're here tonight. That's why we ask your support. I'm here to answer any questions. We did agree to all staff comments with Timothy. So with that, we have the two waivers. We're happy to answer any questions or talk through the process, anything with you.
All right, thank you, Cal. Before I open it up to questions, comments from commissioners, I just wanted to take a point of personal privilege and get clarity from the director. I like your suggestion regarding the park, and your logic behind it makes sense. Thought process about limiting that to just y'all was kind of where my mind was going anyway. I just want to get direction from the director that we can do that and specific guidance on how to do that before we open up for questions, comments to.
On limiting it to this specific use?
Yes.
On that parking waiver? Yeah, I think we can do that. What'll happen is, hopefully it never happened, but let's say 12 years from now, then this use kind of goes away and somebody is controlling it, wanting to do something, selling the individual homes or renting the homes, then at that point in time, that would trigger a change of use. And in order to get that change of use, then that's when we would catch it and say, hey, you don't have enough parking, and you're going to have to modify the site to maybe remove some buildings in order to get parking, or you're going to have to go back to the Planning Commission in the future, go back to the Planning Commission to kind of pitch why they want to keep that. But I think it can be tied to this specific development type. It might be better that it's not necessarily just Grace Place. It's this specific type of development for homeless that meets the criteria of how Grace Place operates. So it could be some other Grace Place in the future, but if it was something different than that, then they would have to add the additional parking.
Can we make it nonprofit specific as well?
Make it nonprofit specific? I think so. I think that would be okay to do it. And part of that is the applicant is asking for it. So it might be a little bit different stance if we were pressing that on the applicant. But if the applicant's asking for it, it seems a legitimate thing to put on there for a waiver because we're going outside of the standard of our parking requirement. And one of the reasons this is a planned development, so this isn't straight zoning. So in planned development, it can be a little bit more negotiated. There can be more conditions. There could be more specific conditions. So yes, I feel that would be okay for it to be limited to a nonprofit operating in the same manner in which Grace Place has the intentions to operate.
Okay. And then last question before we move on that. The process would be, in your example, 12 years from now, there's another owner, that sort of thing on that. If that new owner just reduced the number of units, for instance, to get it to whatever the parking standard is at that time, then that would be approved at staff level without coming back to Planning Commission. But if they wanted any sort of thing that was not.
That's correct.
Okay, then it would come back.
Yeah, because the approval that we have is a multifamily plan development. Even though it was for Grace Place, it's not just limited to Grace Place.
Okay.
But actually having this condition on it, it actually adds a more restrictive condition than what is currently in place.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation there on that. And I know that got very minutia for everybody else here on that, but it's very helpful for us on that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, comments from commissioners on that. Commissioner Longmire, you are lit up.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It occurs to me that I may not have enough information, and maybe I should have asked earlier, but with respect to the parking requirements and frankly the buffer, can someone explain briefly the visitation rules that you may have for the folks that are occupying the villas?
Yeah, so at that scale, we will have to revisit what we currently do. But right now, there are no visitors allowed on our site at all. They can drop off or pick up for our families, but there is nobody that is allowed to visit and linger.
And could you follow on with, we're talking about what, a 2-rail aluminum fence around the buffer?
Yes.
Or are we talking about a solid fence?
No, sir, it'll be a black aluminum picket fence, like you see a lot of places. Decorative.
Okay. Thank you.
I do want to clarify the visitor. We have a lot of visitors in the form of donors who come and tour and meet with us and see our facilities. I'm talking about our residential visitors.
Commissioner Silkwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all who are here for Grace Place tonight. Just a couple of questions, basically from Mr. Witten. There was something mentioned in the comments about fire apparatus and maneuvering and maybe some parking spaces needing to be deleted. Can you dig down on that a little bit more and clarify that? And a part B to that question is, if spaces were to be deleted, would that move that 1.4 parking ratio per unit lower than 1.4?
So as far as the fire apparatus, I know they're in talks with fire about access. I don't know what the status of that is. I think that's still to be kind of worked out between them and fire at the site plan stage.
If I can,
yes.
I've had a conversation, I think, since you've had. Ms. Silkwood, what fire has asked us is potentially look at a short access drive kind of in the area of the basketball court that would give them a little more of a central access point for the fire apparatus. We are parked well enough that if we do have to lose some spaces for that, we will still meet the 1.4 ratio.
Yes, you're actually at 1.58 with the extra space.
Right. And that's, and it was, I've been educated on hose pull length and heart-shaped alignments, and we are going to do everything fire needs to be comfortable with fighting fires in this location, and we can do it without going below our parking ratio requested.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear, because when I'm looking at the layout here, those units right in the middle, I'm thinking to myself, if there were a fire, a massive structure fire, how is the fire truck going to get there quickly and, put that out? So
yeah.
It's a concern, but hey, they're the professionals.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Slattery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about policy in the community. First of all, I think your mission is beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm curious about overnight visitation policies. Is there a certain point in their progression in the program that they can have overnight visitors, family visiting?
We are currently collaborating as a staff team what that might look like. Our hopes is that, we're going to have our policies as an organization. We're hoping that our community of mothers will have their own HOA, where the leaders in our community are going to establish the hard, fast rules for the functional living day to day. It is our great hope that we do not plan on having any overnight visitors at Grace Place, but we don't have every single policy worked out quite yet.
Thank you. And just one final question. If everything is approved, when everything gets approved and you're ready to start, is this a phased build, or are you starting with unit 1 and you don't occupy until all units are built?
It's phased, which is why we're super excited about this concept, because we actually can scale it as we are able to raise the funding, where the other one, that would have been a much harder task for us as an organization.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Seeing none, Commissioner Hasty.
I don't have any problems with the request for the buffer, because normally for that particular zoning, the buffering is to protect the neighbor from these folks. And these folks are buttoned up to industrial areas. And the industrial in areas has that big buffer. So I have no problem with granting the buffer wavering. And with the explanations that we've had, I don't have a problem with the parking ratio of 1.4 that they're asking for. So with those, I would make a motion that we approve with all staff comments.
Yeah.
With the approval of both waivers.
Okay. And can we also have can you add to that the condition that this be limited to just this use as well for this applicant as well, nonprofit use?
That's fine as far
Okay.
as that parking requirement, that it be
Okay.
limited specifically to this use.
Okay.
But I think that if these folks are no longer there and that property is sold, any future developer that wants to modify that, we're gonna get a shot at it. So we could we'll take care of it at that point as far as the parking requirements are concerned. But I will add that as a part of the motion.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion. Can we get a second on that?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Altizer. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to get a clarification on the motion made, Commissioner Hasty, that is a nonprofit as well on that as part of that conditional. Okay. It was. I just wanted that for clarity's sake on the record on that. So thank you. We have a motion and a second. We will move to the vote on that, and this will be a roll call vote. Looks like all votes have been cast, and we have 9 yeses, 0 noes, and 0 abstentions. Motion carries, and we have approval for that. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Or somebody will. I don't know that we'll be. Yeah.
They might want to sell it at that zone.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the one thing we learned.
Yeah.
But I ain't.
Folks, I'm going to just let us take like a little 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene here in about 5 minutes, just because we've had a little longer meeting so far, and we've still got a few items left on the agenda, so we're going to be here for a minute. Just let folks get a little bio break, something like that. But we'll start back in about 5 minutes. I'm going to go on and call us back to order here. We had one planning commissioner that had to step out for a moment, but I think he'll come back in and join us here in just a second. But I'll go on and call us back to order, and we'll pick up with item 9 on our agenda when everybody gets a chance to return to their seat here. Item 9 on the agenda is the Westlake map and text amendments. We have, I'm going to turn this over to actually Director Free to kind of walk us through all this stuff because we've got a lot here on that. So we'll let him kind of get started on everything.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I'll do is probably should have done it at the public hearing portion, but we did receive today something from Holland and Knight legal offices concerning the Westlake rezoning regards to the property at 265 West Main Street. It's the H.G. Hill properties. And I don't know if, is there anybody here with H.G. Hill tonight? I thought they might be here. But just ask that we have this provided to the planning commissioners. Everybody has a copy of that. I'll just hit the highlights of the letter. The company is respectfully requesting that the plan be amended to include the Hill property as part of the Dockside District focus area for the following reasons. The Hill property is directly to the west of the contiguous to the Dockside District focus area, which does permit residential uses. Allowing residential on the Hill property is consistent with the stated key concept in the plan, creating corridor-focused mixed-use, commercial and residential area. Page 5 of the plan states that the Dockside focus area provides an opportunity to leverage access to West Main Street and the lakefront for a walkable mixed-use retail and limited residential node. Given its location on West Main Street, including the Hill property within the Dockside District focus area, will promote a walkable mixed-use retail and limited residential node. Page 14 of the plan pertaining to the Dockside District focus area includes the following key element: limited density to the area between West Main Street and Cages Street and Walton Ferry, with transportation improvements throughout. The Hill property is included within this area. Allowing residential above the first floor is consistent with this stated purpose. There's two more. Allowing residential in this area will help provide residents to support the surrounding commercial establishments and development, which is in the bedrock of a successful mixed-use development. Removing residential as an entitlement will impact the value of the property, which will not only negatively impact my client financially, but would potentially limit the amount of property taxes that can be generated once the Hill property is development. For the following, and then this is the end of it. For the following foregoing reasons, we request that the plan either be amended to include the Hill property within the Dockside District focus area, or the alternative to defer the matter so that my client can have further discussion with the planning department staff about the Hill property. Representatives from the company are happy to meet with the planning staff at their convenience. And I did talk to a representative from them this afternoon. I kind of explained what Dockside was, so I thought maybe they might be here this evening, but I just need to read that into the record since we did receive it. And I believe the other item, there was somebody here that did speak, but everybody got emailed that email that we received earlier. So all of that, so that we have that. I'm just going to go through. We've got a lot of different changes to the zoning ordinance and the specific two rezonings in the Westlake area. And I'm going to go over that, but I'm just going to kind of hit a few of the different highlights and then open it up for questions. One of the things of how we kind of got here tonight, we've been through a process here over the last year where we've been looking at West Main Street, and we call it Westlake. We've been looking at this whole area, trying to vision a future of what the community wants for this area, as well as looking at the reality of what's on the ground there within the Westlake, and what do we see for the future land use within that area. And then that particular the approved Westlake future land use plan, then that was utilized to create the document that you have before you tonight with all of the changes. And the Planning Commission has had a work session on those changes, and I think maybe there were a couple of corrections and different things that were made out of that work session. And I'll just go over, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'll just hit some of these things on this summary that everyone has, and I'll just hit a few of these different things. Of course, these changes remove all the references to Old Town Residential, and it replaces the Old Town Residential zoning district, as well as the Old Town Commercial zoning district. That particular zoning district was created for the old town plan that we've replaced now with the Westlake plan. Different things happened throughout the years, but the plan just never took off. And part of that was some of the limitations by the current zoning that kind of kept development from fully happening within that area. Also, I discussed it a little bit earlier. We're changing some things on site plans so that site plans are approved for 3 years and there's no extensions. Currently, we have 2 years in extension. This lines up with state vesting laws and just makes all that a lot cleaner. We added the SR3 district, and that residential district is kind of a protective district to protect single-family homes within neighborhoods identified on the plan. Also created the Dockside neighborhood district that's really kind of it's a mixed-use area that's very low density mixed use, and within that area. Also, we did some different things with SR1 and some other zones to where we're proposing to increase the minimum lot size. In SR1, for example, looking to go instead of 12,500 square foot to increase that up to 15,000 square feet. Also on that SR1, currently the minimum lot width is 75 feet, and we're proposing to increase that to 90 feet. So it's going to increase the size of our standard residential lot as well as the width, which that lot width would then allow for more opportunities for side-loaded garages and things of that nature as well. And then there were some areas, and I think one of the gentlemen hit on it. There's the area between Walton Ferry and Sanders Ferry, where we have a defined area where we're limiting the height of the commercial buildings, as well as limiting some other uses such as hotels and used car sales within that area. So that's one of the highlighted changes. Also within the industrial zone, working with our community planner, economic development, and community planner, and the planning office, the maximum height in the industrial zone, looking to increase that to 80 feet. A lot of the different things when the state is looking at potential industrial locations, having an 80-foot high ability to have a 80-foot high ceiling within a factory or something is a kind of a minimum requirement, and that would take care of that. Also, one thing we added a definition for a small media production facility, and defined the way that you could get that is through a major home occupation. So you'd have to basically get equivalent of a conditional use permit through the BZA. We have had a lot in the recent years. We've had a lot of folks that are wanting to do filming out of their homes for different shows or cooking shows or different things, and we really haven't had a great mechanism for a way to approve those or at least consider that. And so this would open up that opportunity. You'll see there's a large area where we've added airport hazard area regulations and a map. This is from the B&A from the airport, Nashville Airport, and it's kind of the flight pattern of the jets, and it cuts both tips of the peninsula. It's already there. This is just kind of showing that in our document. We're not creating anything new. It's already there. Also, we have we've increased the percentage of parking space that could be subject to a hardship reduction. We have that currently at 25%. We're upping that to 30% so that we have a little bit more leeway if we have a hardship situation. And then added language for compact and motorcycle parking. So we have some ability to do that and some ways to calculate that if you had motorcycle parking, then how to calculate that. Also, we've had some pretty significant adjustments to parking requirements in residential areas. And I think that was discussed. Those changes were discussed at the work session. So it's requiring for multifamily, especially, it's requiring enough parking for guests and requiring, instead of 1.5 or 1.75 units parking per dwelling unit, it's requiring 2 parking plus 0.5 per unit for visitor parking. So we have that. And the last thing that I'll just highlight is that we have the ability for a voluntary replacement of non-conforming signs. The idea with this is if we have a sign on a pole that doesn't meet our requirements and it's of a certain size, then there's an opportunity where we might create an incentive program for them to make it closer to compliance. Although it might not become completely in compliance, but to get it closer to that. So that's just some of the highlights. There's a whole bunch of other things, but I'll just open it up to the planning commissioners where myself or any of the staff can answer any questions that you have. There's a lot of different things going on with this because it's a mix of the changes that are directly affected with Westlake, but then there's a lot of miscellaneous changes that affect things citywide.
Questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Silkwood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could take a look, I don't know if this is available, if Caitlin can pull it up or not, but Table 4, the residential district lot and building bulk standards.
JP, is that possible for you to pull that plan up? And Jason, do you have access to do that?
Which plan was this?
It's page 77 if you want to look through the ordinance. Okay, I'll go ahead. Looking at these bulk standards and minimum lot sizes. So you'll notice that in rural residential, you're basically going from 1 unit per 3 acres. In estate residential, you're going to 1 unit per 1 acre. And then in SR1, that, we are proposing to increase it from 12,500 to 15,000. I would like to bump that up to 20,000 square feet as a minimum lot size, and that would bring us closer to about 2.1 units per acre. That creates a better transition in my mind from ER to SR1, because you're going from 1 unit suddenly up to almost 3 units per acre, even with this proposed increase in lot size, if that makes sense. Additionally, on table 9, I know we're jumping around a little bit, and I'll just tell you what it says. In SR1, for a plan development in SR1, you would have 3 units per acre allowed. So really, there isn't much of a difference between a plan development and just the base standard for a minimum lot size in just regular SR1. So I'm proposing that we move that to, as a base standard for a minimum lot size to 20,000 square feet, which would be approximately 2.1 units per acre. So I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and make that change, and then we can go on and discuss other things later, but I don't want it to get confused as we move along. Does that make sense? I feel like I've sprung that on you all, but I want to remind everybody I was sick at the workshop and wasn't able to participate. So if this is the first time you've heard it, I'm sure it is. That was something I would have discussed in detail at the workshop. So.
We'll extend a little grace in that case, but that,
oh, thanks.
No, we do have a motion obviously on the floor. I'll entertain a second, but then open up to discussion so we can deal with the motion.
I will second the motion.
We have a second. With that, we can formally open up to discussion on that. And so since you have the motion, first I'll just kind of make a point of clarity, because we're dealing this obviously in conjunction with the Westlake, but I just want to make the point, this is not just Westlake specific that we're talking
Correct,
about.
but
This
I mean,
would be
part of
citywide,
Westlake
right.
is incorporated in with SR1.
Yeah. Would like to kind of open it up to get questions, comments from the full commission on that, as well as staff on this, get y'all's thoughts on this before we vote on this. And also, Commissioner Silkwood would like to hear a little bit more from you about why you want to do this as well.
Well, going back to what I said at the beginning, so when you're and it's hard to do because you don't have it printed off like I do in 2 separate sheets, but when you're comparing table 4, which is the base minimum lot size requirements, to what's allowable or suggested, I guess, in a planned development, SR1, you're only getting 2.9 units per acre for the bulk base, just standard straight zoning regulations out of that 15,000 square foot lot, if that makes sense, okay? And then when you look at a planned development SR1, we're saying that we want 3 units per acre. Well, that's the same as 2.9 units per acre. So I'm suggesting that as straight zoning, we would have 20,000 square foot lot, which would be 2 units per acre, as opposed to 2.9. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. I feel like it's a better transition from estate residential, which is 1 unit per acre, to SR1, and then moving up there to SR2, SR3. Because in rural residential, you have 1 unit per 3 acres. Estate residential, you have 1 unit per 1 acre. And then currently, if we were to approve what was suggested prior to my revision, it would be almost 3 units per acre. So that's quite a jump up from 1 unit per acre to 3. So I'm saying a better buffer would be to have 2 units per acre in SR1, just as your straight zoning.
And leave SR2 still at 10,000 square feet minimum.
We could do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Yes, certainly.
speak on that. One thing to keep in mind on this is also, so Tennessee passed a law in, I think, July. It was effective July 1st, where people, if you make application for a development, not just get approved, basically it's stated if you make application for something, then you fall within that period of time under that ordinance. So it basically took away the pending ordinance doctrine. So one thing to kind of keep in mind is until this is actually passed, anything that makes application prior to that, then it falls under the current regulations. So so on the SR1, if we did make that change, it would make probably a significant number of lots more non-conforming. But as far as like whether it's 15,000 or 20,000, I don't think there's any major difference in doing, as other than it makes it less dense any new development that's proposed. So yeah, that's certainly a change to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And that is my entire goal, to make it a little less dense there for that SR1 transition from ER to SR1 to SR2.
Other questions, comments on the amendment in front of us? Before we move to vote, I just wanted,
So we
Commissioner
had
Harvey? Yeah.
several folks ask specific questions about the Westlake plan. Do we want to address those, or are we just going to pass this and move on?
This is just
This is
on
just
this
a motion on
amendment.
This amendment,
exact
okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Specific. I wanted to get into this before we kind of got caught up in the Westlake, because we were reviewing the bulk standards as a whole anyway.
I'm obviously only speaking for myself here. Philosophically, I agree with where Commissioner Silkwood is. I just want to make sure we have a thorough vetting and stuff, that we don't, by bumping this up, that we don't unintentionally create a problem for ourselves with anything that Grant mentioned that may be pending, anything like that, or cause some things to maybe make application in a hurry that might not have otherwise on some things. And so I'd like to hear from staff on the impact that they think that this might make, if any, on that. I'd just like to get some feedback on that.
I think mostly, I think it's a substantial increase in the lot size. The 12,500 to 15,000, that's an increase, but taking it to 20 is a significant increase, and just, to recognize that. Pretty much, if a lot's already created, say it's in an older area and it's SR1, you could still build a house on it even if it was, less than this size, because it would just be a lot of record, but you couldn't create any new lots. So this would mostly impact new subdivisions that might get created, not ones we've already approved. Those are already vested, but any new one that might get created. For example, just using an example, the Campbell subdivision off Saundersville Road, the 12 lots, if this was approved and then next year they wanted to do that, they'd meet the lot size, because most of that is 1/2 an acre to 2.5 acres. But the lot width that we already have in there, changing from 75 to 90, probably make that, instead of 12 lots, it'd probably make that 10 or 11 lots. But I don't really see any significant issue other than, if you have property, a large tract of property that's currently zoned SR1, it would reduce the amount of units that you could put on that, by that. But I hope that answers the question. I don't foresee any significant issue. I think definitely, when I think somebody had talked about the SR2, I would strongly encourage the SR2 to stay at 10,000 if we're increasing this to 20. Because we need some opportunities with some different zones for that potential.
Thank you, and I think I would be okay with that. And just to remind everyone, this is the base bulk standard. So obviously, developer, someone would have an opportunity to come into a plan development and then negotiate with us, for lack of a better word, to have higher density than this. So.
I would echo that as well. That would change it to 20,000 with what the plan development would allow, would make the plan development very desirable to do that.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we will move to a vote on the motion in front of us, not the overall plan, just the motion that Commissioner Silkwood put in front of us on that. And we'll move to a roll call vote on that. Thanks. And we have, the results are 9 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstentions. That motion carries. And Commissioner Slattery, were you the second on that motion from Commissioner Silkwood? Okay, I thought so. I just wanted one clarification on that.
I do have an item that I skipped over.
Okay. I think you were too. I just wanted clarification on that. I'll try. Commissioner Hasty was.
Yeah.
No. Director Free had something you wanted.
I did have one that I do want the commission to consider for an amendment. This was one change that we ran into with changing some of that area from Old Town commercial to general commercial. That it changed the front setbacks to 30 feet. And we had 15 feet in the Old Town commercial. And with that particular area, the staff feels strongly that the front setback in the general commercial area between Sanders Ferry and Walton Ferry will need to be increased or be decreased to 15 feet rather than 30 foot to match the previous Old Town commercial development. Rear setback may also need to be considered to be 10 foot unless a residential buffer is required rather than the 20 foot. This is something, we're making some changes in this Old Town commercial, but staff feels that making this adjustment to the setbacks just within those areas will give those properties more opportunity to, as far as the way they set on the property. A lot of the developments in that area are a little bit closer to the street, and if we have the 30-foot requirement, it's going to make it feel a lot more like other parts of town, where we have more of that, the development way off the street. And so that was what we were looking at. So the staff would appreciate if the Planning Commission would want to consider that. And I can answer any questions about that as well.
Commissioner Slattery?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So currently on Old Town Commercial along Sanders Ferry, every business there only has a 15-foot setback?
I think that's great.
So right now it's kind of a build-to line where it's, I think it varies because there's different sub-districts in Old Town Commercial, but generally it's kind of somewhere between 0 and 15 feet. But it's like a build-to line to try to average it next to the adjacent properties. So it's very complicated. But we feel that 15 feet allows enough room for landscaping and any sidewalk that needs to be in an easement or anything like that. Kind of keeps it walkable whenever it's developed, so that it's close enough to the road, but still not right on top of the road. It's kind of a good compromise, we think. But 30 feet is considerably, it was pretty far back, so doing the 15 is kind of a good medium.
Okay, thank you. I for one am not walking along that side of Sanders Ferry Road, but, okay, thank you.
I like what staff's proposing here. I think it makes sense, and I think it's needed for that area of town. I think actually 30 feet would be problematic in there, so I'll make the motion as presented there.
I'll second the motion.
We've got a motion and a second. Before we vote on that, is there any further discussion from Commissioner Evans?
Does this have anything to do with gas station on the corner? Are they affected by that?
No. They would be. Right now, they can actually be, they've got a required setback of 10 to 15 feet. So it could impact that, but the proposals that we've seen that have not been officially submitted, the building is actually back in the corner of the property. But the canopy's out in front, so. Yeah, 15.
Commissioner Silkwood?
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions, comments on the motion in front of us? Commissioner Hasty?
I don't have a problem with reducing it, but as Grant said, we don't want to wind up with these right on the road. Now, if we reduce it, and we don't want to reduce it to the point where we're going to create a problem with roads improvements that will limit us to be able to do that in some areas where we know we need some infrastructure improvements. Or, and with site developments and plans, we can probably ask for additional right-of-way if we need it for infrastructure improvements. But if the first one comes in and he's 15, the next one at 30 or whatever, not going to do you any good, because at that point, it's set. So we go from there. I don't have a problem with the 15 maybe on everywhere except where we think we might need major thoroughfare infrastructure improvements. Now that Grant, and maybe there's a good reason to go to the 15. If there is, convince me and I'll vote for it. We're
actually, staff is open to 20. We definitely don't think 30 is the right fit for there, but 20 would be okay on that front setback. And then the other, reduce those others to 10 foot instead of 20 on the rear, but staff wouldn't have any problem with that being 20 foot instead of 15 feet on the minimum. And that's not a build to, that's just the minimum setback.
And also, Mr. Hasty, just like you said, like with the major thoroughfare plan, we do require right-of-way dedications. And I think on Sanders Ferry Road, excuse me for the Saunders Ferry folks, I think we have I can't remember what the right-of-way is there, but it's pretty significant. Do you recall, Stephen? I think it's at least, I know it's at least 60 feet there. If not 70, but I would say a good 60 feet. So generally, it does allow for 3 lanes in that section with the right-of-way dedication, but curb and gutter and sidewalks and everything. But yes, so I think we should have enough right-of-way dedication that's required with any new development in that major thoroughfare plan, even with a reduced setback, but it is something that maybe like a 20-foot just in case to have a little bit extra wouldn't be such a bad idea, particularly along Sanders Ferry. But I think that's it's a good debate. I mean, but I think that should take care of everything for sure if we did 20.
I would move to amend the motion to 20 and versus 15.
Instead of doing that, just for simple sake of parliamentary procedure, I'll amend my own motion on that. So I'll amend my own motion to make it 20 feet then. And are you amenable to go along with your second there, Timothy? All right.
I'm
okay.
willing.
Okay. So we have a motion, an amended motion by the motion sponsor and a second on that. Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote on that particular motion as well as presented by Director Free and then amended to 20 feet. And
Oh, too late.
no. Looks like we have everybody voted. We have 9 yes, 0 abstentions, and 0 no's. The motion carries.
Who was the second on that?
Commissioner Osterhauser, yeah. All right. Back to the discussion on the presentation overall on that. I'd like to kind of talk about the letter that we received from Holland and Knight regarding the H.G. Hill property. I'd like to get staff's thoughts on what was presented to that and just kind of open up a discussion on that.
Yes, I'd be happy to address that. I think, the property would be going from Old Town Commercial as proposed to general commercial with some limitations because it's in that area between Saunders Ferry and Walton Ferry. But including that in the dockside neighborhood, I don't see that being anything negative from the sense of the community side. If it was dockside, it's just it appears to me, and I shared this with a representative of the owner. It just appears to me that they're better suited to keep it as the commercial, and then if they wanted to do a mixed-use development, they could come and propose a planned development, at that time with maybe doing a planned development dockside neighborhood. But looking at it from what you can do with the property, even though the dockside neighborhood, there's some pretty neat stuff you can do, but it's very limited and it's very kind of low density, low impact, where the property as it is now, and even as it'll be zoned as general commercial, there's a lot of different opportunities that you can do that are high value opportunities within that. No residential, of course, but a lot of commercial potential within that area. If that kind of answers the question, about that.
But the owner's requesting to be included in the dockside focus district, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it is contiguous, obviously, to that area.
It wouldn't be in full conformance with the approved future land use plan, but the planning commission, could still zone that. I mean, especially if the property owner is wanting that, then it would be okay to kind of go outside of that boundary. Just need to make sure in the findings of fact that you're recognizing that things have changed, which the things that have changed would be, I would say, wouldn't have thought that the property owner would have wanted that zoning classification. We would, that they would have wanted to have the commercial classification. And they hadn't expressed it, until we have just found out about it. So that's kind of what, what that looks like. And I might just go through while we're, talking about some of these things that got brought up. Just these maps right here. Is that the first map of that, Caitlin, the OTC? So if you see the brown area with the white around it, where it says Old Town Commercial to Dockside Neighborhood, that's the area that's currently Old Town Commercial that is changing to the Dockside Neighborhood. And then the next one, you can see that little bitty L shape right there that's kind of blue hash mark with a white line around it, that is Old Town Commercial currently, and we're looking to do that to SR3, to the protective residential neighborhood. And the gentleman, Mr. Duke, that spoke earlier, they got the 2 letters. He actually has 1 property in each one of the new zoning classifications. So that's what happened, which, you know, that's something where we could look at that and we could adjust that. There could be benefits to him having 1 of each. Actually, it just depends on, you know, what he's got going on there. Yeah. And then the next slide. So this is, the left is Old Town Commercial to general commercial. And then this is the area where H.G. Hill's property is currently located, sort of on the left side of that area. And this area also includes the kind of pork chop area along the lake. Then that's the area where, you know, we've limited the 1 story. And going back to, I think a gentleman had questioned about, well, why are we limited some of this area to 2-story and why are we limited to 1 story? That follows what came out of the future land use plan. But now that we're in this zoning part of it, you know, that's something that is in there to follow with the plan. But that's something the Planning Commission or later the Board of Mayor and Aldermen could adjust that in this process to say, you know, higher stories. But I think the reason for the 2 stories is that in the vision for this area through this very detailed analysis and public involvement with the future land use plan was that the area to stay sort of lower density and kind of real viable, but kind of lower impact where there's not a lot of tall buildings within that area. So that was, you know, kind of the thought process. The one on the right is Old Town Residential to general commercial, and that's a change. I think that's right on Cages. That's the north of Cage Road on that. I think, is that the last one? No, we have more. The left side, Old Town Residential to the protective neighborhood SR3. That's a big area. That covers some of the area that was discussed on, what's the name of it? The multifamily that is in the area. I can't think of the name of that. Waterford Crossing, the Waterford developments. Very nice area. And that's an area that was done, I think, with plan development years ago and under Old Town Residential. And we didn't change that to multifamily because through the whole process, even though that is multifamily, that wasn't something that the Planning Commission through the future land use plan was really wanting to rezone anything multifamily. It certainly is multifamily. It can continue, and you know there's no problem with that. But it would become non-conforming, legal non-conforming, but still non-conforming after this rezoning. And I think this might be the last little bit, the Old Town Residential to Dockside neighborhood, that little part on the right that's circled with the white. And I think that is, maybe look at the next one. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So those are kind of an outline of all of those things, and I think maybe that addressed a couple of those things. One thing I might address was the issue someone had about, well, why can't you do hotels and motels, you know, within that area? That was something as well that came out through this whole public process and through the future land use plan, is that that there was that the plan and the results of it were that the community does not want another hotel or motel within that area, and didn't want that for traffic reasons, probably height, as well. But it doesn't mean, even though we're rezoning that, we do have the opportunity for planned development. There's always opportunity that things could change in the future. As things change in the future, and if they're warranted, then the future land use plan can change, and zones can change in the future as well. If there was a particular project, it doesn't mean that's not impossible for that to go back through a process. but it doesn't fit in the vision of what we have, right now. And I hope that kind of addressed what some of the folks had shared at the podium earlier. And I can answer anything else too that you have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Silkwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify that if we were to take the H.G. Hill property suggestion and move them into the Dockside neighborhood, that by straight zoning, we would be allowing residential in that area and not just commercial. So I think that's something we need to think about and keep in mind as we make that decision.
Commissioner Slattery?
And for that very reason, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that very reason, I'm very concerned about opening that particular intersection to residential. So I would not be in favor of that.
And they're not here this evening, but once I shared with them, when we're talking about Dockside neighborhood and you hear the word mixed use, I mean, what that really means is there can be a residential unit on each lot, but there can only be one. So you can't have duplexes, you can't have multifamily, you could have a lot of different combinations of a business and a residence, or you could just have a residence there, but you can't have multiple residents. And for the Hill property, I mean, you'd have to bust all that up into small lots to account for any significant number of units for that.
No.
And then also, I may just note that also what this does is vacation rental is still allowed within that Dockside neighborhood as well as the general commercial, but specifically in that Dockside neighborhood where residential is allowed, you could have a bakery and a vacation rental on one lot, but you couldn't have a vacation rental and a residence. So wherever you're having a vacation rental, you can have that within that area, but you can't also have a residence on that same lot. The concern with that was that what we might end up with while we did that was that we could end up with something that looks just like a duplex. So it looks just like, a duplex and have a vacation rental on one side and then just a regular rental on the other. And that's not the intent of the future land use plan to do that.
Commissioner Hardwick?
The couple of questions. So if the gentleman that owns Relax Inn wanted to build a more modern and upgrade that hotel, would he be allowed to? If he scraped it and started over?
Yeah.
Yes, within 30 months by state law.
What's that?
Within 30 months. So if it were torn down, he would have 30 months to, I think it's questionable whether to get an application or get it approved, but I would say probably just get an application with a new site plan to get a new development. But
if 10 years from now he wanted to do that,
after he tore it, yeah.
If it burned or whatever, the answer is no.
Yeah, it would lose its grandfather status, non-conforming status. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If it went beyond that 30 months.
Correct.
But also one of the other things that you could do, if you had room and opportunity on your property with setbacks and buffers and all that kind of stuff, you could actually expand that use a little bit. So there's potential where you can, with the non-conforming laws, you can expand those, and you'd have the right to do that. You'd still have to meet all of our other different requirements, but a non-conforming use, a legal non-conforming use, it could also expand, as well as what Grant said. You could just decide, hey, we want to build something, totally different, and you could tear that down and build something, back similar to what you have.
As long as it's on the same lot or a lot that they own.
But it would have to be within the 30 months.
Within the 30 months. So.
And then as far as the Hill property, knowing the type projects they developed, if that building's extremely old, it would not surprise me to see them come in and scrape it and want to do some type of mixed-use development. Yeah. So if they came in and had retail with residential on the second floor, would that be allowable, or would that be a no-go? But with all that said, if they don't care enough to show up, and we've been doing this for well over a year, it's their problem.
Yeah, it could, let's just say on the Hill property, for example, they want to do a mixed use development, similar maybe to, if you're familiar with Double Dogs off of Charlotte Pike, you know, where it's Double Dogs and Farmburger. I don't think Farmburger's there anymore, but that and then the residential development behind there, I think maybe they were involved in that. Probably something like that. You know, they could come back to the Planning Commission, request a change in the future land use. Maybe
So we could go through the process to make it if we wanted to
rezone it, plan development, probably do it, probably do mixed commercial. So an MXX or MXC that would allow a mix. But in order to do that with the recent history that we now have, this future land use plan, it'd need to be something that was very compelling. And the mix would need to be a strong mix, a light mix of a bunch of residential and a little bit of commercial, probably would not favor well. But something with a really good mix was very interesting, could go through the process and see how it goes.
And Keith, I think when we talked to them today and going by the letter as well, it's like, I think really what they wanted was something like Old Town Commercial for that zoning, to retain something like that or have some other zone like that in order to maintain that residential component. But with Old Town Commercial going away as part of this, it's like we don't really have an animal like that anymore in our zoning that would, that would allow them to do that other than with planned development with the MXC, which is only a planned development zoning. So to me, it seems like that would be their way forward to propose something that's acceptable in a planned development.
If they consider this a downgrade to their property, what are their legal rights? And that's the last question I have.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to address that. That would be something our legal counsel would have to address. I will say, not in regards to that, answering that, but I will say this change from Old Town Commercial, we've had this for a long time. So there's been a lot of time and opportunity for people to maximize and utilize that. But one of the reasons that we're changing it is it's broken. It didn't create the vision of what Old Town was supposed to be in any way whatsoever. So the whole idea, even though it sounds really good, hey, we'll have residential above and all this commercial below it, but, with the way we had it, you could have all the residential you wanted above, but you also had to have that same amount of commercial on the first floor. And, there's just a limited amount of commercial that's viable when you start doing, tons of square footage over there. It's been there. That's one of the things with this. It hadn't just been there for a couple of years and then now we're changing it. All of the property owners, especially the long-term property owners, they've had the opportunity to utilize this Old Town Commercial zoning for a very long time.
And two, it's with this, the boundaries are based on the land use plan and strictly based on the land use plan here. I think there is some flexibility in those boundaries to a degree, but we are basing this zoning and everything on the land use plan that was passed with the public hearings and everything, and the notifications to all the property owners that were part of that land use plan. So again, we've notified all the property owners again with this rezoning and map changes that are reflective of that land use plan that's based on. So yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly it's not unreasonable for someone that's adjacent to one of these properties to ask for a different zoning, but generally, I think it's certainly something that right now we're strictly basing it on those boundaries. So with some exceptions, with some of like the if you see the little commercial portion there at Noakes and Walton Ferry, there's some office and neighborhood commercial. We left that zone that way just because it's existing, but it made sense there to leave that. But generally, it's all based on that land use plan, Westlake.
I just have a couple questions for Director Free on this. Under their current zoning, obviously it's going away, but under the current Old Town Commercial, what would they be entitled to as far as residential units on that, under 9.2 acres on that?
5.
5 per acre, so
Yeah.
a total of, well,
What's
between,
proposed?
okay,
And with this, it goes down to 4.
yeah.
What
okay.
about the current?
The current's
15?
5, yeah.
Oh, the current's
Old,
5?
Old Town Residential,
Yeah.
it used to be 15, but that was
15.
changed.
Yeah, that's right, it was 5.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
changed by
Yeah, I'm
text
sorry.
a couple years ago to
That's
5.
Okay, okay. So this would take it to 4 then, so
4.
go, forgetting with the .2, then it'd go from 45 down to 36 on that 9 point, okay. My mind was going where Commissioner Hardwick's was on that too, about what their potential legal remedies would be on a significant downgrade from their perspective in zoning on that. I'm of two minds on this. One is it's not an unreasonable ask what they're requesting because it is contiguous and it might, giving them what they ask, might not be a bad thing to kind of stave off any potential challenges. The flip side of it is, very good point, they have not shown up. They've gotten plenty of notification on this stuff too, on that. So I'm going to make a motion. If we get us to that we move them into the dockside area of zoning that they've requested on this. If it doesn't get a second or it doesn't pass, it's not going to break my heart, but I'm going to make the motion nonetheless on that and just kind of see where it goes on that. So motion's been made. Is there a second on it? There is not. So that motion's not going to go anywhere for a second. Like I said, not going to break my heart, but just wanted to put it out there. Anyway, we will move on that so we've got that properly addressed then. Any further discussion on the plan overall? Comments, questions? Commissioner Hardwick.
I'm a little concerned about the hotel. I mean, it's been there a long time. And if at some point he wants to upgrade it, do something different, and he's either gonna have to tear it down and totally change the use to make it economically viable, or try to keep it the same use, but yet we're saying you've only got 30 months to do that. And that puts him in a hard position. Is there something we can do to help that, or it just is what it is?
Well,
I mean, with all due respect, it clearly needs to be redeveloped at some point. It needs to be remodeled and all the things that go with it, and upgraded as that whole, and I truly think the Hill family's gonna show up at some point. My guess is when that grocery store lease expires, that's when the plan's gonna show up. And it's probably a 20-year lease, and when that happens, he may want to develop with them.
okay, this is cumbersome, but it's possible. Okay, I'm just trying to be creative.
Sorry.
So, as the gentleman stated earlier, we're doing a lot of this with the notes, in the table. So the notes in the table are really controlling a lot of the different things. That's where the whole hotel, motel thing is going for that designated area. You could leave the language like it is. You could specifically, it's a little cumbersome, but you could specifically spell out that particular property that would be allowed to be, and a hotel could be built there at that location. And then they wouldn't have to go through that, and it's just a simple wording, and then that does take care of that, that issue.
If there's any other use, he has to fall under whatever the zone.
That's correct. Yeah, I wouldn't advise changing anything else, but that's something we can change it. It can be done, and we could spell out that particular lot that a hotel motel is allowed on that. But understanding doing that, potentially you could end up, but it still would have the height limitations.
2 stories, right?
Yeah, you still have 2-story limits. So, but I think we can do that if the planning commission wants to do that. And I might ask Grant about his thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough, but I mean, technically, with it being a note, we could pretty much be creative with it, like Keith is saying. Now, we got to be very careful not to be discriminatory in anything we do with the zoning. So, we would have to be very careful about how we say it and how we word it. But we could potentially come up with a solution on that, as far as like being able to allow, at least maybe by saying existing hotels may be replaced under that current zoning, or something like that, where, I don't know how long that would last, though. It's tricky. It's very tricky. Yeah.
Let me ask this question
Yeah.
then. If he were to come to us at some point and say, look, I really want to redo this, then the planning commission could create that variance at that time, or we would not be able to.
Yeah, it'd be changed, just like what we're doing right now. It'd be doing a text amendment, to do that. Actually, in the
You would
future.
think the planning commission would go, okay, old hotel, new hotel, I'd rather have the new.
Yeah.
But
But
they
you could,
might not.
but the thing about it is he could still do a new hotel. So he could tear down what he has now, and then if he did it within 30 months from tearing it down or stopping the use, he can build it,
But that's my
back.
issue, is the 30-month time frame.
Yeah, but he has to use that, which would seem like that would give it plenty of opportunity, because otherwise, I don't know, you're gonna. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, really, either way, you end up with what you've got right now, or you end up with another hotel that isn't taller than 2 stories, which would probably might be totally different in the look of it, but would be similar in the function, of it. But it's just, we could do it, but it just would be cumbersome.
Okay.
Because we'd be spelling out a specific thing, and I don't know on that. I don't know. We might want to be careful, because we just might want to be careful with spelling out very specific things like that. Now, but this goes against the vision of the future land use plan. What could be done is you could just say, take out the hotel motel stipulation, that not allowing that. So probably the better.
The commission really wanted to go.
Yeah, probably the better choice is either to allow them or don't allow it within that particular area. Would probably be the best choice.
While we're having this discussion, we're talking about one piece of property in particular here during this discussion, but this is an overall discussion of Westlake. There are multiple hotels in the Westlake district, though. Am I remembering correctly on that? Does this go all the way down to take in, it would be on the far end, but would it go all the way down to take in that hotel at the end of Rockland Road?
Yeah, that zoning isn't changing on that property.
Okay.
This is just, this whole hotel thing, tell me if I'm wrong, it's just that Saunders Ferry, Walton Ferry, kind of in that square area.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
that's
truly are talking about just one.
One area.
Okay.
Yeah, that map's in your packets, but not. I don't think it's on the presentation, but it is that block between Cages, Sanders Ferry, Walton Ferry, and Main Street. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, if you can see what page that image is on in the plan, that would be great. And thinking back at the discussion with the future land use plan, I think initially there was a discussion about not allowing any hotels. And then I think this of why is this area, this was the fallback, which was, I think, the area the folks in the community were concerned about there being large hotels within that specific area. Let's see. Yeah, this is it right here. It's on page 87 that shows the block area where that limit is for the Westlake commercial area of the plan. Yeah, that's it. I think everybody's, and that kind of shows that area that's hatched. I mean, one other possibility.
That's Dockside neighborhood. This is actually the area between. There should be another map. If you scroll up, there you go. That's it right there.
So another Commissioner, another possible alternative could be to move that line. So that's the line we have defined that basically says no hotels. Only and nothing more than 2 stories.
Yeah,
that line could be moved. The gentleman's hotel, you can see it. It's right in the center, right? Yeah, right there. So.
Yeah, and it's used cars, equipment repair, basically things that could be in conflict with residential. I think there was a small list of things that were excluded from the GC in that area, as well as the height restriction that Keith mentioned.
Commissioner Evans.
What are we trying to do here? I'm totally lost. Are we trying to extend the 30-month period when his decision time to decide if he's going to remodel his hotel or rebuild it? If it burns to the ground, does he not have a grandfather right to build it back?
Yeah.
If he wants to remodel it, can he not apply for a permit and remodel it?
Yes.
I mean, how could it go away and 2.5 years is not enough to decide whether he's going to put it back or not? I mean, I don't see what could happen here that we need to change that 30 months. Or could somebody explain, please?
Now, I think there's ample opportunity to replace it. There's ample opportunity to possibly enlarge it, depending on what's going on there with the lot, on how much room that you had. You could renovate it. It could change moniker, whatever the name of it is now, that could change to a different motel name. So there's a lot of opportunity now to where it can be replaced with something new. But calling it out.
Could you tell me what he couldn't do now? What restriction are we giving that hotel that is limiting his ability to continue to run or operate, remodel, or have a hotel there?
Yeah, nothing with the way it is now. The only limit right now would be if he wanted to tear it down and build 3 or 4 stories. Then he couldn't do that within this limitation. But that'd be it.
Okay.
Everything he's approved on his site plan with.
Yeah.
It'd be grandfathered in.
Yeah.
We keep talking about the 30 months. When would that 30-month clock start?
Well,
I'll answer
I don't
it.
think it's, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll answer it. No, we would, because I would determine when that 30-month would start. And what we would do is, when we do that, we would officially notify that, hey, we're starting the clock on this. So we would have to document that it is started somehow. I mean, so, you know, which could be any different things, but we'd have to have evidence that it had not been operating, and then establish what that date is. So, you know, chances are it may be there for, you know, vacant for a year, and for some reason we don't even know it. But then when we become aware of it, then we would probably put the owner on notice that, hey, you know, just checking in, but wanted to remind you that, you know, we recognize this, and looking back 3 months ago, we can have documented this, so the clock has started ticking. So if you're wanting to do something, get in touch with us. How can we help you? That's kind of what we would do with that.
Commissioner Hasty?
Okay, the 30 months, that's based on the rezoning? Because I didn't know that there was a start time and limit on expansions of a non-conforming use. You know, we had a seminar here for planning commissioners, and I forgot the attorney's name that was here. You know, and he said basically be very careful, because expansions of non-conforming uses are a matter of right. You can't deny. I mean, I don't know that 30 months is that's a denial of some fashion, I think.
And I might explain that 30-month. That's not after it's rezoned. Yeah, the expansion by right could be any time, as long as they're operating it. And we didn't say it ceased operations for any 30-month period. Then they could expand it, and you know, an example could be it sits vacant for a year, then they decide to renovate it and expand it, and you know, and that would be okay, you know, to do that. So there wouldn't be any problem with it.
Yeah, and there's two things at play there. There's the state law that allows them to reconstruct a use within 30 months, and then our zoning ordinance also allows an expansion of a use on the same lot. So they could build it bigger, you know, the structure bigger, as long as they stayed on the same lot. Yeah. Now, I think there's also a provision where if the lot is owned by the same owner, like an adjacent lot, they can expand to a different lot, but it's got to be owned prior to passage of the zoning ordinance. So they have to have owned it a long time in order to expand on a new lot. But yeah, so there's two different things at play, but it's very flexible though. It gives owners you know, the ability to reconstruct and expand and remodel and do a lot of different things. So so it's good for business owners in that respect. And I will say one thing on this hotel: it does have specifically, it would be the only hotel allowed in that specific area. So in one way, there is an advantage there. It's like that's the only place you can have a hotel. So you know, if someone wanted to say, "Hey, I wanted a hotel," it might increase the value of it to a degree. But I mean, I guess that's subject to the real estate market. But it's just a thought I had. But anyway, I think there's a lot of flexibility there for any business owner that needs to expand or reconstruct.
We don't have a particular motion at play on this. We've obviously had a lot of discussion on this one particular issue, but there's not any motion or anything. Does somebody want to make a motion, or do we just want to continue discussion on this specifically, or do we want to move back to conversation on Westlake Plan generally, or no, just kind of test the will of commission again on that? Okay. Because I think we've gotten a lot of clarity on this on that. So with that, other questions, comments from commissioners on plan overall, because we've obviously got a lot of stuff in front of us on this. Director Free?
I would just note, if somebody ends up making a motion on this to approve, would be to also just recognize the finding of fact that the changes are in conformance with the Westlake future land use plan and the other items listed on the comments on that staff report.
That sounds like a perfect segue for somebody to make a motion then, in that case, if somebody wants to do so. I was actually looking at you, Commissioner Hasty, to do that, to do this.
I'd make the motion that we proceed based on, the information supplied by staff. Approve all the changes to the zoning order and do it according to the findings of facts, that the zoning change is in agreement with the land use area. And B, there is no adverse effect on adjoining property owners unless such effect can be justified by overwhelming public good or welfare, and condition affecting the area have changed to a significant extent to warrant an amendment to the land use plan. Those typical three findings of facts that go along with a motion of that nature.
And your motion to approve included all staff comments as well.
Right.
Okay. I will second that motion, and we'll move to a roll call vote on that then. Okay. I believe everybody's gotten the opportunity to vote. Before we finalize this, give anybody the opportunity who wants to change their vote in case they do. Seeing none, everything's kind of locked in. That is 9 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstentions. We have approved Westlake Plan and the related zoning changes, and want to give thanks to staff for everything that they've done on this. Know this has been a lot of work, and just want to commend y'all on this. And it's just been, I think it's going to be good for our community for a long time to come on that. Just appreciate y'all's diligence. Keith, you and your entire team on this. This has been a long time coming. Just wanted to thank y'all for this. And I know you've got some final comments that you wanted to add on this before we move on the agenda.
I will share what the next steps are. So now this is a recommendation. It's not the final done deal. This recommendation will move forward to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen. There'll be a meeting next Tuesday here at City Hall. I think it's 6 o'clock. With the Board of Mayor and Aldermen General Committee, and then the General Committee will go over it. It's a small group, and then it forwards it on to our full Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And in 2 weeks from next Tuesday, it'll have a first reading, and then in the next BOMA meeting, there'll be a second reading and a public hearing. So there'll be an opportunity at BOMA before everything is finalized for any comments on this. If anybody had any specific questions, you can always call the staff. Grant Green has led the effort on a lot of the rezoning, but he or any of the staff member or myself could answer any questions that you have, but feel free to contact our office if you have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Free. I'll let you continue on because item 10 is staff level projects have been approved, and then item 11 staff level projects that are pending.
Yes, staff level projects approved. Final plat with Whataburger, site plan for Ma and Paul's exterior remodel on East Main Street. A plat for Mayfair Phase 2 that's right here behind us. The Puckett's exterior remodel at Glenbrook Way, the site plan for that's been approved. The St. Timothy Lutheran Church Blessing Box site plan, that's pretty cool, has been approved. A Verizon small cell. Projects pending, a final plat at Bluegrass Landing, a final plat at Durham Farms, the Rancho Cantina exterior color change site plan, that's still pending, and then a couple of Verizon small cells. And also, William Ferguson subdivision, sections 2 and 3, we're working on those. And that's all the items that I had there.
Do you have any final comments for entertain a motion to adjourn?
No.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. No, I'm sorry.
I love that. Thank you.
No.
I move to adjourn.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second on that? We've got a second from Commissioner Slatter. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? I will hear none. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
I thought about it.